Real sugar is expensive in the Neath, but the Murgatroyd company is ingenious when it comes to concocting culinary substitutions. Such concoctions, of course, are proprietary. Sugarless sugar isn't typically marketed by itself, but it is an essential ingredient in many company products. Following the explosion, this essential ingredient is now heaped in mountains across the factory floor. One could almost call it a subalpine range. Well, we can open the doors to the factory floor. Mr. Spices has installed a fiendish lock to quarantine the factory's interior. Luckily, you've come prepared with a combination. And your copper cipher ring. Even with the combination, these dials avoid compliance. They drip venom. They snap at your fingers. The copper cipher ring shivers, wheels spinning, smoke sputtering from its tiny gears as you crack the last code to plug into the lock. Springs and coils and clockwork components rain around your feet. With a shriek, the lock finally yields as the ring breaks apart. A brutal blast rushes out from the factory floor. You came prepared for this too. You pull the fur coat from the judgmental tailor tighter. Your heavy boots crunch with the sugarless sugar as you march inside. "Don't worry about me," says the incognito agent. "Not that you would, but I'm well acquainted with the cold." She sticks to you like a shadow. Though we lost our cipher ring, it exploded, but we did gain an Eloian scream. So we can follow a conveyor belt, or we can scramble over the mountain. Let's follow the conveyor belt. Crystallized lumps are stuck to the conveyor belt. You can't determine what they are, but this one resembles a blancmange. This one, some deformed pudding perhaps. They have all been overgrown by sugarless sugar. From a distance, the white crystals look almost fluffy, but touch them and they'll draw blood like a knife. Okay, we can pick a lock to open a door. You can hear an animal whining on the other side. Oh god, it's not still alive, is it? How many limbs can an animal have? Unless it's more than one animal. Where do these appendages begin and end? Their fused bodies are frozen to the floor, wreathed in sugarless sugar, breathing slowly as the crystals shimmer in the light from the doorway you just opened. You're still standing in the corridor when a limb fumbles for the knob and shuts the door again. You hear the deadbolt lock from the inside. Let's climb a slippery staircase. Icicles hang from the handrails, their tips glittering. Up here, you can smell the air better, clawing deep into your nose. If you are on a mountainside, this is where the atmosphere might become dangerously thin. But when you struggle to breathe, it's not because there is less oxygen. Your chest is tight. Sugarless sugar is crystallizing inside your lungs. This does not seem good. Oh no, a frozen corpse. You know this mustache from a photograph. His body might be intact, but he's not coming back. His flesh is completely blackened with frostbite. Not simply discoloured, but black, starless sky black, Sensor's ink black, the black one finds, withdrawn and secret, in deep caves and deeper dreams. His climbing gear is encrusted with sugarless crystals. One outstretched hand is still clutching a note. If you're reading this, no need to thank me anymore. I failed. I hope you succeed. May fortune find you where it abandoned me. Yes, give Sugarplum all my love. Perhaps the renowned mountaineer wasn't really that good, after all. Oh, poor man. I was kind of hoping he was going to survive. So we can either cut through the mailroom or inspect an assembly line. Let's cut through the mailroom. Any business big enough will need space to process its correspondence. Some letters are related to business, others are related to business. There are hundreds stuffed in pigeonholes. Most were postmarked in London, but this one is from Prague. Here's one from Shanghai. There are many from Vienna. They discuss innocuous topics. The weather, the latest moves in an ongoing chess match, the proper technique to brew tea. Let's maneuver around stacked crates. They're each branded with an MC for the Murgatroyd company. So many things contain sugarless sugar. Murgatroyd's fungal crackers, Murgatroyd's fungal biscuits, Murgatroyd's premium fungal blancmange. Each crate is labelled with a different product name. Even with fungus as a base, or perhaps especially, the customers enjoy a sweet flavour. And of course, there are Murgatroyd's sugarless sugar cubes, wrapped neatly in bright packaging. Let's inspect an assembly line. Before the quarantine, this is where workers packed special products. Inside one box, you find a folded envelope. Inside another, coded text. You pull open more packages. They're filled with sugarless sugar. When you sift through the crystals, you discover a feather duster. A second feather duster is buried in yet another box. And here's a chess piece. And the third feather duster. And a second envelope. We can catch a falling diamond. Where did this little beauty come from? Far overhead in the factory's catwalk, webbed corners, cloaked in a darkness that clings to the ceiling. Something slinks. It must be crawling on the walls. No, on the ceiling now. It's monstrously huge, and yet it barely makes a sound. Only the tiniest tinkling clink. Diamonds chiming against each other as thousands dangle from bracelets, earrings, necklaces. It is watching you. You know, because even this far away, you see the greed in its eyes. When you look down again, the incognito agent is gone. Wasn't she just right here? And where did you put that broken stiletto? Damn it. Ah, here we go. Locate the explosion's epicenter. We made it to the center here. Every seed, every cipher, every secret is leading you here. 1 gunshot. 2. 3 echoes through the factory. 4. 5. And then you're there, in a crisp white clearing, surrounded by gigantic crystals in concentric rings. Their crags glitter high overhead, jutting crookedly away from a mailbag that rests in the clearing's middle. The missives spilling from its mouth are crystallized too. The incognito agent is dead on the ground, gripping a stiletto. The bizarring correspondent is standing above her, corpse, holding the smoking gun. He's also holding a dachshund. The dachshund sees you first and barks. "Good dog," he says, pointing the gun at you. "Oh, for God's sake." She keeps the gun trained on you as she speaks. Sugarplum nestles in her elbow's crook. With the same arm, she's holding a missive. It draws your gaze. Hard to look away. Sigils shine on the paper like sunlight on snow, like a candle behind frosted glass, flickering with cold brilliance. She must have taken it from the mailbag. Let's ask for some explanations. Get her to talk, keep her talking, assess your next move. "I didn't want to kill her, but you don't know what she was, unless you do. She wasn't a honey addict, that's for sure. She wanted to eat this message." You still can't look away. Its sigils have frozen your gaze. "I tried to read it already, but I don't understand what it means. This isn't a normal language. It's a shadow cast by the correspondence. Some scholars call it the discordance, but even they would struggle to compose a whole letter. It's forbidden, secret, difficult to decipher. In other words, perfect for espionage, but I'm going to crack it. I won't be a pawn anymore." Okay, so we can either ask about the bomb, or standing right where, presumably, the prototype exploded, or we can ask about the discordance. Let's start with the bomb. I thought it must have exploded. I've cracked so many codes about the prototype. I know the size, the design, the materials, their sources, their payments. It was built using discordant principles. I expected to find some wreckage still here. There's nothing. Perhaps Mr. Spice has already confiscated the debris. But she frowns. She doesn't think so. Something else, something I haven't been told. This missive will tell me. I know that it will, since it's encrypted with a discordance. It could only have come from the top. It might contain the real plans for the bomb. Or it is the bomb. Let's ask about that discordance. Its sigils compel you to stare. They want to be understood. It's mathematically precise, almost an algebra. Unless it's not. Sometimes I think it might just be the complete opposite. Poetic, interpretive, literary. It's highly illegal, forbidden by powers even greater than the Fifth City's greatest. But she has studied hints in strange margins. She tells you about frozen fields. She tells you about crystallized eyeballs. When someone comprehends its sigils, but when it has an effect, it is accordance to the Bizarrine correspondent, the ultimate cryptographic language. I still can't pin down the grammar, the vocabulary, the punctuation. Nothing. I've never encountered a language that's more difficult to master. Well, what is your motivation? What is she truly doing? Why is she truly doing it? All those codes cracked, and you still don't know how to read me. I've always presented myself as exactly who I am, says the Bizarrine correspondent. I never lie. I value the truth above all. I wish I didn't have to point this gun at you, but journalism is a tough career. Can I ask about Sugarplum? You keep asking about this dachshund. You'll ask one more time. Yes? What about Sugarplum? I've told you everything I know. How many times must we go over this? It's my dog. He came with me from the surface. His name is a seed that I use to encrypt messages. Wait, we're just talking in circles, aren't we? He asks, after a pause. What are we walking around? What's in the middle? The unspoken thing, the one thing we're actually talking about. The dog. Oh God. She suddenly comprehends the message. It is the bomb. And a law is enacted. The falling snowflake meets its reflection on the pond. The old man writes two meanings into one letter. The lonely night feeds a stray dog. No single thing shall be a single thing. As she holds it, crystal chunks form around the missive, crushing the paper. Brace yourself. There might be a gale that rips off your skin, or a blast that crystallizes every bone in your body. Or if you're lucky, it might be nothing at all. My steward in the discordance quality gives me 10% chance of success. I need everyone to cross their fingers. Probably should have seen that coming. Sugarless sugar continues to drift through the air like falling snow. The Bizarrine correspondent collapses to her knees. She's staring up, looking at nothing. All around you, the gigantic crystals shimmer, reflecting diamonds. More diamonds and more. Diamonds sparkling with light. Something draped in diamonds is moving through the sugarless crags, approaching, and the crags are great mirrors that bounce the light from the diamonds into glittering, fire-white arcs. When it becomes apparent that nothing will continue to happen in relation to the bomb, Mr. Stones emerges into the clearing. Mr. Stones is burdened by so many diamonds that even its hooded head, which would bow to nobody, still bows beneath the jewellery's dazzling weight. It extends one long, diamond-encrusted limb towards the Bizarrine correspondent, opens a diamond-encrusted claw, and says to her, "Mine! Crystal, give!" He looks to you as Sugarplum whimpers. We have three options. We can advise her to give the crystallized missive to Mr. Stones. It would be the safest option, The only safe option, really, at least in the short term. We should suggest she keeps it for herself. She's already read the message. She's in a unique position to interpret it. Or we could ask for it. You might even forgive the gun pointed at your business if she hands it over nicely. I'm going to suggest that she keeps it, I think. Stop! Screams another voice before she can react. Mr. Spices is pushing through the sugarless sugar drifts, clawing a frenzied path across the ground. It surges into the clearing, appendages bristling under its robe, jointed limbs jabbing the fabric from inside. You won't take this from me too, Stones. How dare you interfere? Mr. Stones is not eloquent, until it is. The correspondence is its native tongue. When it responds to its fellow master, its fiery words blaze in every diamond, catch every facet, rhetorical constellations. In that case, spits Mr. Spices, flames burn on its teeth like fuses. Every point Mr. Stones makes is a flaming whip, a shooting star. Its diamonds multiply the light. Mr. Spices leans low, like a crouching cat, spouting its own burning desire. This should be mine. They circle each other. Their speech is the glint on the crags, the gleam on their claws, the blood that bubbles from your pores as you blister from their heated argument. The Bizarrian correspondent takes this opportunity to run away. Well, let's bear witness to the debate. Words burn in your ears, flames leap in your eyes. You will suffer both wounds and nightmares, but we've got to know, haven't we? Your thoughts are consumed, kindling to a conversation that would melt metal. Mr. Spices belches light, spews cinders, blows shimmering curses like clouds from a hookah. It girds the clearing with sentences that smoulder, with sparks that Mr. Stones inhales and blows back hotter, brighter, filigreed with gold fire. Its diamonds blinding are 1,000 spears, their beams plunge through your flesh to roast your bones. Mr. Spices shrieks. The shriek is a cannon. Mr. Stones spreads its limbs until diamonds, diamonds, diamonds engulf your vision. Not thousands, millions, suns that burn in a sky whose firmament is the master's vocabulary. Good lord. Excuse me, I'm going to run away. Pursue the Bizarrian correspondent. She's still holding the dachshund. You won't lose Sugarplum again so easily. What matters more than getting Sugarplum back? As Mr. Stones and Mr. Spices continue their incandescent dispute, you follow the Bizarrian correspondent through the crags that surround the clearing. The masters don't try to stop you. Your fur-lined clothes are crystallized and falling to pieces. Your ears are still burning, your pores still bleeding. But you have your priorities straight. You can see the sigils from the missive in your memory, expanding like fractals on a frozen lake. Between the gigantic sugarless crystals, everything is reflected. You're here and there and everywhere, and so is the Bizarrian correspondent. Mirrored agents sneak left and creep right, ahead and behind, each brandishing another gun. You've been this way before, haven't you? Why else would it feel so familiar? Well, we have two options, and they both pursue the Bizarrian correspondent. You see her dart around a crag. If you take this path, you could cut her off. Or we could wait a minute. You just went another direction. Which one is the reflection? Let's go with that one. Which one is the reflection? I finally understand, says the Bizarrian correspondent, a voice echoing from everywhere at once. The masters were too terrified to touch the bomb. They sent us like rats into an experiment to die. When we survived, they remembered that they were masters. Now they both want to claim it for their own domain. She lifts her gun and aims directly at you. Forgive me, she says, firing. But the bullet only shatters your reflection, and then her reflection slips away again. God damn it, she shot at me. Okay, we have 4 options that are all pursue the Bizarrian correspondent. This has to be a reflection, doesn't it? Her features are warped. She's behind you, she's lifting the gun again, she's going to shoot. Wait, she must be over there, there are footprints in the sugarless sugar. She's running towards you. She's also running away. Which way? Let's go with the gun one, she's going to shoot. More sugarless sugar shatters. Reflections crack. The Bizarrian correspondent drops her gun. All her bullets are spent. No, she's still holding the gun. She's taking aim. You watch your own face splinter. Another bullet smashes a mirrored surface next to you. Around and around, says the Bizarrian correspondent. Don't you get it? The bomb exploded as soon as I understood the message. We're still inside the blast. I can't let you leave here alive. Our identities are changing. We shouldn't technically exist. So we can't evade you forever. This really has to be her. Unless this is really her. She does share her own resemblance. Go with that one. I know what you must be thinking. If the bomb exploded, then why didn't anything happen? But it's still happening. It's not going to stop. Of course nothing happened when the bomb exploded. How could it have? It already happened a long time ago. Years and years. That's when you first met Sugarplum. You're only remembering now because the bomb brought new clarity into your life. Crystalline clarity. The Bizarrian correspondent's gun is in your face. He pulls the trigger. There's an empty click. I'm pretty sure that's a German swear word right there. But that's what she says. We can capture the Bizarrian correspondent. She's really herself. And you're really yourself. And you have finally cornered her. She drops her gun. Truly, this time. But wasn't it true before? And she drops Sugarplum too. The dachshund runs into your arms, carrying the crystalline missive in its mouth. But she's still holding her dog. She cradles Sugarplum. You cradle Sugarplum. Sugarplum is back where he belongs. You remember all those lovely walks in the park, those mysteries he helped you solve with his nose. He's always been right by your side, even in New Newgate. Funny how they let inmates keep dogs. And of course, in your more discreet work, you use Sugarplum's name to encrypt messages. It's a private seed that nobody will likely guess. Oh god. So we got Sugarplum, and we have a crystalline curio. I've been a fool, she says, holding her double dog. The bomb was always aimed at the network. During the blast, all these crystals were imprinted with the same sigils. Anyone who's exposed might be mirrored. We'll all have dogs named Sugarplum. We'll all use the name as a seed. And the spy master sitting at the top already knows it. Our encryption techniques are compromised. We've been compromised since the first explosion. So we have 3 options. Leave her to her own devices. She's right about being compromised. And she's not an immediate threat anymore. We can remove her from the game temporarily. Blackmail, bribery, a mild-mannered hint. Whatever it takes to neutralize her. Or we can remove her from the great game permanently. Enough. She always has another angle. And she just tried to murder you. Let's just leave her to her own devices. Even after all of this, you still must value something like the truth. It's rare in a person. So rare that I've never seen it before. And I'm still a journalist. I still know how to write. You might see my story in print yet. You don't see her again in the factory after the sugarless sugar starts coming down in heavier sheets. She takes Sugarplum, and you take Sugarplum, and she's gone before you turn back around. There's only a glittering silhouette barely visible through the blizzard, waiting patiently when you emerge from the mirrored maze. Patience for Mr. Stones requires great willpower to maintain. It is only a crystallized curio now. The chunks encrusting the paper have entombed the sigils, rendering the message illegible. You could find similar crystallized curios elsewhere, and Mr. Stones would want to own them all. It stretches a sparkling claw through the blizzard. "Crystal, mine by rights," says the master. "Make it a gift to me now." Okay, so I can either surrender the crystallized curio to Mr. Stones. It appears to have won its debate with Mr. Spices. The other master is absent. We can deliver the crystallized curio to Mr. Spices. Mr. Stones will not be pleased. The crystallized curio has to be freely given. So one will gain connected with the Masters of the Bazaar. If I deliver it to Mr. Spices, I will lose connected to the Masters of the Bazaar. Or I can keep the crystallized curio for myself. If you want to make 2 powerful enemies in a single day, this is your chance. You will lose even more connected to the Masters of the Bazaar, and they will both disapprove. I think I'm going to give it to Mr. Stones. He won that fight fair and square. Mr. Stones takes the crystallized curio, drops it into a pocket, and turns to leave without another word. Why would it ever express gratitude? You've given it something it deserves to own. It vanishes into the sugarless storm, diamonds still glittering like captured stars. One glint at a time, they wink out. By the time you've determined the prototype's fate, other arrangements have already been made. Mr. Stones will lift the factory's quarantine. Mr. Stones can do this because Mr. Stones now owns the factory. In fact, from this day forward, Mr. Stones will control the entire sugar trade. When the masters employ the correspondents to debate business matters, their arguments tend to have binding outcomes. Well, let's leave the factory. You'll have to pass through the constables one last time. What is sugarless sugar, anyway? It might have been altered by the explosion, but the Murgatroyd company was producing it before. That's proprietary, says a constable, who searches you at the door. You're not allowed to take any company property with you. Distribution will begin again. Thanks to the bomb, the factory's store of sugarless sugar has been multiplied exponentially. It costs nothing to manufacture, which means that Mr. Stones will reap spectacular profit. Perhaps it's all contaminated, but as long as no esoteric scholars look too closely at the crystals, it shouldn't matter, should it? The Master's attorneys are already drafting more claims to expand its domain. After all, many things contain sugar. Wine, for instance. Ooh, there's some trouble brewing with the Masters, oh my. And we've finished the exceptional story. However, if you visit the Bazaarian correspondent's flat in Spite again, you may find an epilogue. Oh, hello. Let's speak with the Bazaarian correspondent. Look who came back, she says, lifting a dog. It's Sugarplum. Just came wandering in, she tells you, as though you hadn't both recently engaged in life or death struggle after detonating a discordant bomb. She isn't sitting here. She can't be sitting here, dandling Sugarplum on her knee as if nothing happened. But she is. Is this some elaborate ruse? She doesn't know anything about the discordant missive. She didn't attack you. She's never even been inside the factory. You deduce this, carefully, over the next several hours, without revealing anything to her. She's either telling the truth, or she's the Neath's most inspired actress. Gained a memory of the discordance. No single thing shall be a thing. No single thing will be a thing. No single thing will be a thing. You finally seem to have the upper hand with her. You know things that she doesn't. You know which things she doesn't. You know, furthermore, what she thinks you don't know. With all this bountiful knowledge at your disposal, you can subtly steer the conversation to extract additional intelligence. She doesn't even know that she's confessing anything. Let's ask about her profession. She writes for the New Fairy Press. Yes, and what else? Her employer specifically sent her to the Neath to research the correspondence. It was vital to have a dependable agent with that fluency to infiltrate the Murgatroyd network. Her employer was also apparently acting on a tip from a well-respected Viennese connection, whose identity she still hasn't uncovered. I'm interested, of course. You always want to know where the money comes from, but I'm not going to stop in my tracks until I find out. I might be standing still forever. They say he's an elderly gentleman, but how many elderly gentlemen are there in Vienna? Alright, let's ask about encryption techniques. Language is her expertise, how words fit together, how they don't. Her understanding when it comes to the discordance, among other things, is flawed, to say the least. She doesn't really know what it can or cannot do. She certainly doesn't know what it has done, which is why she wants to study it with slightly more vigour. I want to go west, she tells you, to research the standing stones around Hill. They're inscribed with discordance sigils, you see. I suspect that the deepest secret ciphers are encrypted with a discordance. In order to crack them, I'd need to be able to understand it. Am I already good enough now, I wonder? And then finally, let's ask about this tea she's drinking. Did she really use so many sugarless sugar cubes? Why not? She asks, dropping more into the cup. They've grown on me. Let's ask about Sugarplum. Once again, the same dachshund comes around. Judging by her response, which is thoroughly predictable, she doesn't suspect a thing. She still thinks Sugarplum is simply her dog. He licks her face. Of course, there are probably only 2 reflections in play. Probably. How many times could the bomb have been detonated? Was the first explosion more powerful than the second? How variable are the effects on people? Or on dachshunds? Who initially read the missive? Is this something that you should tell her? He's watching you rather curiously. You haven't said anything for a while. You finally seem to have the upper hand, yes. So what should we do? Should we tell her the truth? Her entire life might have been doubled by the discordance. We can lie to her, a little lie or a large one, it'll be fiction either way. Or we can say nothing. Let the silence speak for itself. I think we're going to say nothing. Something has changed about her. This conversation has, at least in part, produced the change. You haven't told her anything else, but she's finally heard her own thoughts spoken aloud. That usually seems to help her. She starts to think again. Now she has Sugarplum back, which means she could temporarily pause the research for her current article and travel out west instead. That's where she really wants to go. It's where her employer eventually wants to go too. But why not now? She finally smiles at you. Yes, she says. West. I like the sound of that. Excellent move. Now the real game can begin. You have solved the case of the missing dachshund, and money is no object. And that is it. That is the end of the exceptional story. I adored that exceptional story. This episode has gone incredibly long. My voice is dying, but I didn't want to stop. So thank you all very much for watching this. Please let me know if there is anything different in the comments down below, if you took a different path, if you maybe removed them. Little stabbing, take them out of the game permanently. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And as always, I'll see you next time.